Serious, hikers and campers of Reddit, what's the scariest experience you've had in the woods? Good one. Mine was on a solo trip in the mountains at about 8K. I was well off trail and set up on a ridgeline. Full moon and no one around for many miles. About 2 in the morning I heard some noise. Wasn't an animal. Woke up and it sounded like footsteps that were getting closer. Look out my tent and I could make a bunch of figures coming my way. Walking in single file. Maybe 10 of them. Didn't make sense that it was a group hiking. Not there and then. They got closer and they all had similar, military-style, big backpacks. No headlamps. As the first guy got close I said, "Hey." He said, "Hey," and kept walking. They were all Hispanic and they didn't even look at me. Eyes straight forward. Then they were gone. I was like, what the fuck was that? And then it dawned on me. Harvesting a weed grow. Smiley face. I was mountain biking along a mountain road that connected 2 trails. I was passed by a pickup truck going the same direction as me. A few minutes later, the pickup passed me going in the opposite direction. I took notice but didn't think too much about it. When it passed me a 3rd time going in the same direction as me, my spidey senses started tingling. I'm a woman and I was riding alone. The truck disappeared over a hill that I had just started climbing. When I got to the top of the hill, the truck was parked off the side of the road about 100 feet away. The guy was out of his truck, standing in the middle of the road, looking in my direction. I turned around, bombed down the hill and rode as fast as I could back to the single track where I knew a car couldn't follow. Scared the hell out of me. I remember when I was kid driving down an old dirt road with my mom in the middle of the woods. When suddenly the car stopped abruptly. I remember looking at my mom and she had a look of horror on her face as she was looking out of the front windshield. Then I looked out and saw what she was looking and have never been so scared in my life. There sitting in the middle of the road was a tiny little man almost like a Keebler elf, only straight from your worst nightmare, from the depths of hell. He was just standing there, hat and all, staring at us for what seemed like an eternity. It seemed like my mom, myself and this creepy little demon elf were all frozen in fear. Then all of a sudden this tiny little demon elf started to move. In fact, it started to hop. It hopped away. It was a fucking rabbit. That's why when people say that have seen Bigfoot or a ghost, anything of the sort, I give them the benefit of the doubt, because if my mom and I had turned around and left before the rabbit hopped away for the rest of our lives, we both would have been convinced we saw a tiny woodland elf. Either that or creepy demon elves that live in the woods have the magic ability to turn into rabbits. I've posted this before. Went camping with some friends on hill a few kilometers out in the woods from one of the guys' house. There's a few hiking, 4-wheeling trails in the area that lead up to the hill, so it's known by the locals. It was about midnight, we had a fire going and were just sitting around having a good time. Then the guy, there was 4 of us, sitting opposite of me, yells, "Who are you?" I turn around and there's this man, about 6 feet tall, staring at us from the edge of the woods with a big rock in his hand. One guy knocked an arrow in the compound bow we had. The guy across from me grabbed the hatchet and I pulled the knife off my belt. We had no clue what we were doing, but the guy wouldn't say anything to us. He eventually just backed into the woods. No sleep was had that night and we kept a very large fire going. I spend a fair amount of time in the woods hunting, camping, hiking, so there's been a bunch more, but this one always stuck out to me. I had 2. 1. We were in high school and snuck down to the river to camp. We hung a hammock and slept under the stars. I kept hearing shit in the night and my boyfriend kept telling me I was imagining things. I didn't sleep much and the next morning we packed up and left. As we got to the exit there were cop cars everywhere. We managed to get out a different way so we wouldn't get in trouble. Come to find out there had been a hobo camp there and there had been a murder there while we were sleeping. 2. We were camping near a lake. We had raccoons coming into camp and stealing our dog's food. Husband shot one of the raccoons with his bowfishing bow. It's a compound bow with an arrow attached to the bow with a string. The arrow hit the coon in the face. He sat up, took both paws and ripped it out of his face. He just tossed it on the ground like it was nothing and kept eating our dog's food. We didn't mess with that coon again. other than coming across a perfect 15 feet diameter circle of flattened yellow grass 12 miles from the nearest road or trailhead, and the moment of eye contact just before the bear jumped me and took me down, I'd have to say it was the time I stood up from a pee break to see a wet rattlesnake on the rock I'd just squatted over. I was in the woods with 3 friends at night. A friend's house was nearby and I was getting hungry, so I went inside to find some food. Another friend came inside with me. 2 friends were still outside. Later on, one of the 2 who were outside comes in and sees the indoor friend on the couch next to me. They panic and immediately run back outside. I poke my head out the door asking what's going on, only to hear them yell as loudly as they can, "That's not Kevin." Everyone comes inside and calms down a bit, and the story comes out. They thought the friend who was indoors with me, Kevin, had been outside with them this entire time. Why? Because in the darkness of the woods they saw a silhouette about the same height walking alongside them silently. Then at some point it ran away and they were chasing it thinking Kevin was running off for some reason. The reason my friend yelled, "That's not Kevin," was to stop the last outdoor friend from chasing whoever was out there deeper into the woods. We still have no idea who that was or why they didn't ever speak. I go hiking in the woods that permeate my town, sometimes so late that I get to see the sun rise out there. The strangest thing I ever saw was what I could only describe as a shanty town was built up seemingly overnight deep into the woods. Simple little hovels made of scrap metal and bed sheets and a small fire pit that someone had made out of an old tire, with the fire still burning. But that wasn't the weird part. The weird part was that this was well past midnight when I found this place and it was quiet as a grave. There was no one there. Someone made the trouble of getting a fire going and then left it. From the look of it, this place could hold about a dozen or so people, and yet there was nothing there but the fire they abandoned and whatever possessions they had left in the shanties. Walking home from a party late at night. I'm just enjoying the beauty of the city at night when I notice a man walking about a block behind me. 2 blocks later he's getting closer. So I cross the street. What a coincidence. His route needs him to cross too. Half a block later I cross back. Oh hell no. Yeah, he crossed back too. About 2-3 blocks ahead I see a homeless person pushing a shopping cart. ISTSRT jogging towards them and call out, "Excuse me. Excuse me, I'm so sorry, but do you mind if I walk with you a bit?" Because, turn back towards my little shadow friend, this asshole doesn't think I notice him following me. Homeless person turns out to be elderly black lady. She doesn't miss a trick, pulls out this big-ass Bowie knife from her cart and waves it at the man in the lamplight so he can see. What you gonna do? You wanna play? Go home. Guy fucks off fast. She was astounded that I approached someone like her, especially since it was not immediately obvious she was female from a distance in the dark. I was like, I knew he was trouble. I figured even if you were a man, best take my chances that you weren't. She walked with me for a bit and we chatted about stuff. Nice lady. I go out for walks very late at night fairly often, so I've seen a few things. The creepiest though, happened about 2 months ago. I left the house around 1:30 a.m., and it started off as a normal walk. I wandered around the town till about 2 a.m., when I decided to go home. I was walking back the route I had came when I noticed a black van meander down the street. Didn't really pay too much attention to it though, at first. I did pay attention though when I saw it slowly drive by me for a second time. I wasn't entirely sure it was the same van though, so I just continued walking. But this time I kept an eye out. And lo and fucking behold, about 10 minutes later, the same damn black van came down the street again. This time I knew for sure because it didn't have license plates. Now I was fairly scared, so I picked my pace up a little bit. When the van came around again this time, it stopped in the middle of the road a few houses in front of me. I stopped, turned around, and booked it back in the other direction. I made a few turns onto different roads, and then ran right into someone's yard. I waited behind their fence, and the same fucking van came down the street. I assume that when they couldn't find me, they finally decided to fuck off. But I waited in that yard for about 20 minutes before I ran back to my house and practically threw myself through my bedroom window. Edit. J3K. It isn't letting me respond to your comment lol, but I'm more of an insomniac. Ellie edit too. Because this is like the most asked question. Yes, I am a guy. Also told to put in here that I was 15 when it happened. My girlfriend and I had driven down an old dirt road that ran beside a lake on one side with mountains on the other. We were looking for unexplored territory to hike in. The dirt road became a trail and eventually was swallowed up entirely by the forest. Once the path became impassable by car, we got out and hiked for quite some time and began making our way back to the car as the sun was going down. It was a challenge getting the car turned around, but I finally managed and we were off. It was slow going as it was a shitty road and getting dark fast. Suddenly we came to fork in the path that hadn't been visible coming the other way. Neither of us had any idea whether to go right or left, so I just picked randomly, hoping that both would end up taking us back to the main road. As we rounded a small curve in the road, our headlights fall upon a man dragging a large hockey duffel bag off the trail into the woods. As soon as the lights hit him, he just froze completely still. Driving past him felt like an eternity because we couldn't have been doing more than 5 miles an hour, due to the shitty road. My girlfriend and I didn't say a word to each other until we were well past him, at which point we were like, WTF was that? And then the road ended. Just like where we had stopped the first time, the forest had swallowed up this part of the road. We were going to have to turn around and drive by the man with the human-sized duffel bag again. I told my girlfriend to buckle up and hold on tight because at the first sign of trouble I was going to gun it. We came to the spot where the man was and he was nowhere to be seen. We eventually made it to the right path and got the fuck out of there. The weirdest thing about it was that there wasn't a vehicle anywhere near this guy for 50 miles in either direction. We would have seen it if there had been. We'd traveled as far as possible both ways and there just wasn't a place to pull off of the road. How the hell did he get there? Where was he going? What was in the bag? Not on a trail, but walking my dog late at night. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning, my dog rang her bell and I begrudgingly got up to take her outside. When she wants to pee in the middle of the night, I don't take her very far, just in our side yard. I took a flashlight with me in case she decided to poo so I could pick it up. I'm standing there waiting for her to do her thing. She is doing the doggy walk in a circle thing. Then all of the sudden the dog gets spooked and whips around. Out of the corner of my eye I see this chick just standing there. I didn't see her walk up. I didn't hear her walk up. I just see her standing there super still. Based on her position, she had to have come from between my house and my neighbor's house. Which is odd, because behind our houses back up to a green belt. It is probably 40 degrees outside and this lady, about 20, is in super short shorts and a t-shirt. I looked at her, told her she scared me, and she mumbled something like, "Nice night, what are you up to?" Standing there holding the leash with my dog, I said, "I'm walking my dog." Then she said, "Cool, cool. Do you know how to get into my house?" I locked myself out. Pointing to my neighbor's house. Now, I'm a good American, I know my neighbors, and this wasn't my neighbor, who is a single 30-year-old female. She hangs out with my wife, so I know her really well. So I asked her, "That house?" Pointing directly at my neighbor's house. She nodded. I said, "You don't live there." "I know who lives there." She just scoffed and wandered her way into my backyard. I followed her, said, "What the hell are you doing?" She then took off running, scaled my fence. Which item of note, it isn't an easy fence to scale. It is a deer fence. It is a see-through fence that goes up 3 feet with cattle gate, then the top of the fence is stainless steel wire that runs horizontally. It is the type of thing that, if you weren't expecting it, you'd easily trip over as it is extremely hard to see and not very common. Anyways, she scales the fence and ran away into the green belt. I always have a pocket knife on me and was fortunate enough to have my, unfortunately, useless dog. So I looked around my house, neighbor's house for other people, shined my light in the green belt, and nothing. I have no idea how she wound up back there, what she was doing, what she intended to do, but she scared the ever-living shit out of me. It was in the summer around dusk and I was camping at a remote campground with my dad. There was a lake right next to the grounds and my dad and I would trailblaze through the forest right next to the lake because if you went far enough there was a really pretty waterfall. A few strange things happened on this hike. We found a slash pile that had a little kid's shoe on top. When we came to a small clearing, my dad had to take a leak to he faced one side of the clearing and I faced the other, and we both clearly heard a child say, "I'm over here." My dad thought it was me, and when he realized it wasn't, we spent half an hour looking for someone, but we found nobody. After that, we gave up on going to the waterfall and started to make our way back to camp, but there were clear sounds of something following us, twigs snapping, bushes shaking. We haven't been camping there since. I had a group of friends who used to get together and play manhunt in a local park at night. Just a different way of saying a big game of hide and seek tag where 3 people start off, it, and everyone else goes and hides in the park. As they find and tag people, they become it as well until eventually there is only 1 to 3 people left, then we start again, and play into early morning. Well, one night I was it with my friend and his younger brother. We were heading to the middle of the park, to a hotspot for hiding places. There is a long stairwell that leads up a huge hill to a pavilion and field. We were slowly walking down those stairs, maybe halfway down when we noticed 2 folks way below us. Thinking it was one of our friends, we tell out, "Hey, who's that?" Instead of the normal reaction, which is to call out your name then sprint away trying to avoid getting tagged, a strange voice responds, "Who the fuck are you?" We at first started sprinting down at them, like we normally would. But then we realized they too were sprinting at us. We don't even hesitate, we turn around and sprint up the stairs, as fast as we can, adrenaline kicking it, hairs sticking up on the back of my neck. We make it up on top of the hill and pause, when I look back and they are right behind us, not more than 10 feet away, which is absurdly fast because of how much distance we had between us. We lose our shit and start sprinting as fast as possible to the park trail, that wraps around the entire park and leads to a road where one of our friends live and that we use as a meet-up spot between games. It's a 2-mile run back from where we are, so we book it, sprinting as if our lives depended on it. Occasionally looking back and seeing the 2 people following behind. As we get nearer our energy is spent, but we push on and make it to the street, looking back and there is no sign of the 2 strangers. All of our group is back at the house, lounging on the driveway, having decided to prank us that night, and while we were off in the park searching for them, they would meet back at the house until we gave up. We shared our story with them and some laughed in disbelief. Others wanted to search the park for those 2 randoms, but we never discovered who they were. All I know is that they were incredibly fast, and shady as fuck. It wasn't what I saw nothing out of the ordinary. However, my dog got very agitated around a certain part of a trail and alternated between barking and snarling, and hiding behind my legs. It creeped me out enough that we hurried out of there fast.